This is your government. That means you own it. The owner's manual is the U.S. Constitution.
Are we ready to move on to the next one? All right. And the next, Vic, would you like to do the next?
To establish post offices and post roads.
Good. And how would that promote the general welfare?
Uniform communication.
Absolutely. Okay. The next one. Roy.
To promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries.
Good. So what do we commonly call that?
Intellectual property.
Intellectual properties, exactly.
Patents.
Patents.
Copyright.
Copyrights, exactly right. That's all right here in the Constitution. And how does this promote the general welfare?
Well, if there's no incentive for me to create this phone and sell it to the masses out there, if somebody else is just going to be able to, steal it, and maybe he has better capacity to produce it than I do. I produce 5 of them, even though I invented the thing, and I get nothing, and that guy gets.
Well, I'll build a better one and get more money for it.
Right. Well, but the point is, yes. The point is, he ripped me off to begin with, and if I had a patent, he wouldn't be able to do that.
That's right, that's right, because the FBI would investigate him and they would shut him down. That's
Theoretically.
that's
They have
the
to
way
pay you a lot of
it's
money.
supposed to work. If Mike makes a phone and George's not allowed to steal it, what's the benefit of the general welfare?
It encourages other people to be creative
Right.
and to continue producing new items.
Okay, so then those new items then promote the general welfare.
Not only that is I'm going to be very, very rich, and I'm going to buy stuff from everybody in this room. And that's going to
Now,
promote.
I know you might, I don't think you are, but I know you might. Yeah.
If it's coming down to patents, these things usually are dependent upon a great deal of capital investment in research.
Yes,
And if that research doesn't happen because somebody's going to steal it just as soon as you get the result,
yeah,
you're shutting down. It's counterproductive.
right.
This encourages research, which ultimately encourages products.
Yeah, the point being that we are able to enjoy these phones or whatever else it is that's being produced by this. It all becomes part of our wealth.
Oh, it's the reason why we are able to enjoy the quality of life that we do at this point is because of this.
Yep. I'm pleased now to move forward. Next thing?
To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court.
Good. First of all, promoting the general welfare, you have to have justice, and you have to have easily accessible justice. You can't have everybody going to the Supreme Court, because nobody will get justice. You're going to have to make some inferior courts to that. Not only is that valuable to the general welfare because it allows justice to be distributed across the whole nation, but also it provides a check, and from the checks and balances of the legislative branch on the judicial branch. So if the judicial branch starts doing things that they don't like or they don't think is the way the people want or whatever, they weren't there, and part of their campaign is that they get elected so that they will handle this judicial mess that they have. They get in there and they rearrange how the courts are. That's one of the checks and balances, to keep the courts under the control of the people and the states and the Congress. Are we good with this? Ready to move on? I think Rick, Sue.
To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations.
Good. All right. How would this promote the general welfare?
Because you can't send your stuff to Europe if the pirates are stealing it.
Right. You can't even send your stuff from Savannah to Boston if the pirates are stealing the stuff.
And criminal acts, committed offshore are still criminal acts under our government, according to this.
Right. And the last part of that is offenses against the law of nations. The Law of Nations was a book written in 1770-something or
1753.
1753 by a Swiss gentleman. And he described in it what a nation looks like, the attributes that would have a nation. Like it has its borders, and it holds its borders inviolate. And then he described, now that we have a nation, it's going to deal with other nations. And when it deals with other nations, this is kind of the way those nations are going to deal with each other. And sometimes they're going to go to war. And this is how, when nations go to war, this is how they go to war. And then the final part of that book was when you're going to conclude a peace, what you have to do to conclude a peace. And it was just a treatise about this is what nations are. And he called it the Law of Nations. By looking at what nations do and how they operate, it was just describing the way they are, in the same way that if you were to write about the law of gravity, you say you let go of something and it drops. That's the law of gravity. So he's calling this the Law of Nations, not because it's some body got together and said, this is the way nations are going to be. No, this is the natural way that nations behave, is what he was trying to do.
Is this a direct reference to that book?
Now, it's not necessarily a direct reference to that book. However, that book was well known at the time in the colonies and in the States.
The first English printing was 1756, German, French. It was printed in a lot of different languages, and many different nations used it as their guidebook. Benjamin Franklin received several copies in 1775, but it had already been in use by Congress even before then. He received several copies for Congress to continue using to write the Declaration of Independence, and then by 1780, it was a standard textbook in American universities. By 1787, when the Constitution was being written, there was the first American printing, and in New York. So, and this was a very widely used book, and it's still in print today, and you can buy it on Amazon.
Or you can download it,
Yes.
because it has no copyright, because it's from 200 years ago.
Out of curiosity, how did the 1787 dictionary define piracy?
Ah, okay. Would you care to? Okay. All right, we have now the definition of piracy according to the 1828 dictionary.
The act, practice or crime of robbing on the high seas, the taking of property from others by open violence without authority on the seas, a crime that answers to robbery on land. Other acts than robbery on the high sea are declared by statute to be piracy.
Okay. I know that you have a very good definition, Jack.
The U.S. Code defines piracy as an act of war undertaken without authority of a sovereign nation.
Oh, okay, good. It should be noted here that although it talks about offenses against the law of nations, it means that Congress has the power here to define an offense against the law of nations or an offense against international law. They can pass those, but as has been pointed out in the past, they are allowed to define and punish that, but it doesn't say that they have to. The next part deals with Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 11 to 16, providing for the common defense.